All right. And we're talking about the
Good
poetry book
morning,
today,
good
right?
morning, good morning. How is everybody doing this morning? This is Brent Harding, and of course, you know, we are on the Wealth Warrior broadcast. We've got some exciting things to share with you this morning, and in particular, we're doing something that is just totally out of the ordinary when I'm consistently talking about wealth and the fact that we need to be so focused on wealth. With all of that being said, there are times we've just got to take a departure and we've got to relax out. You know, it's great to have wealth, but if you've got nothing to do with it, then it just doesn't even make any sense, does it? Or if you get so involved that you do not take time off for yourself, that's not such a good picture either. We can be focused. However, we've also got to understand that we need to relax, we need to enjoy, because when we do that, when we rest and renew, it allows not only our body to recharge, but it allows our brains to recharge. And when our brains recharge, we can shoot forward. In fact, I like to say it is trajectory. And that's exactly what happens. So, although I shared with you that we are ready to start pumping iron, we're going to start that May 1st because we're going to take this week to rest, renew, recharge. And I thought there is no way to recharge better than to hear poetry, to hear music, to hear poetry, to let our minds flow. And I have to tell you, when I sit and I think about the gentleman that you're going to hear talk about poetry, my first inclination was to say, wait a second. This is a Haitian gentleman, a man talking about poetry. I was blown away because it just didn't connect, but yet it does. And I am so pleased and enthusiastic to have this gentleman with us. He is the author of a number of books, two books in particular that captured my attention. One is relative to poetry, which he's going to talk about today, and the other is about business. In particular, it's about network marketing businesses here in the New England area. He has spoken with us on that previously, and he is going to, this time around, relax our minds with poetry. He is also an engineer. He has 20 plus years of business experience, and he's with us today. So I would like to bring to the forefront for our viewing pleasure, as well as our listening pleasure, Mr. DimitryFrederique.
How you
Hey,
doing?
how are you this morning?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I am gloriously wonderful and absolutely marvelous because I'm just still laughing at the fact that we are just going into a totally different direction. And I'm enthusiastic that a lot of us do not, well, I haven't stopped to really think about poetry since I was in college and how it relaxes the mind and how it allows the mind to really replenish, refresh. And when it comes to being a business person, an entrepreneur, small business owner, whatever we want to categorize ourselves, poetry doesn't seem to be a part that we would ever think of that I now see as a necessity and probably one of the easiest ways to take us into meditation and one of the easiest ways to allow us to compress, to bring it down so that we can recharge. So help us to understand at least how I'm looking at it as a business person, why we would want to do this and just as in humanity. The floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much for having me. Um, well, first, you said a lot, and so to go back, you make me think about, one of the things why I wrote poetry, and it is a business. For me, everything I do is business related. I say I don't really have hobbies, and everything I try to do, if even close to being a hobby, I think about it in a business sense as well. But for me, I look at poetry, what you're saying about working hard, because I just came from vacation as well and ready to recharge and go forward. And so when you think about the Renaissance era, what brought about the Renaissance era from all this industrial age movement, and now we have people now had so much free time in their hand, and so they went to the arts. So that that's one thing you could think about. But from a business standpoint, poetry is a business, and I think one of the problems, because I actually face that issue, is that a lot of us do not think poetry as a business. They're just casually free. And I think a lot of people, sometimes half of us have the creative side, and some of us on the other side have the business side. And so I think of myself as the Bill Gates or the Steve Jobs of poetry, because I believe it and always saw it as a business. That's one of the reasons why when I published my book, and actually my story in my book, I delayed it for 17 years because I actually was waiting for technology to catch up to my vision of where poetry should be and where the artists have control of the art to create that medium and where you could control your thing. And if you look at the industry of the music today, that's one of the biggest issues. If someone young kid right now wants to be a rapper or whatever, and a music artist, they need to think bigger than just, oh, I want to be famous, publish my, be a number one hit song, this and that. They have to understand that there's a business side to the music industry. That's why 50 Cent, Jay-Z, and all these guys, they've actually, if you watch them carefully, they've understand the power of owning the masters and being in control of your art. And that's one of the things that held me back for years because I saw what you talked about. People didn't take poetry seriously. And just like, I look at myself from, because I have an IT background as well, I look at poetry as, okay, Bill Gates did the same thing. Years ago in the 70s and 60s, people didn't take software seriously. People were pirating software from each other left and right. And so he changed the mindset and said, hey, this is my creative work, and I want someone to pay me for that. So, like me, I saw the same thing because I have that business mindset, and I say, hey, you can make a living off your poetry, writing books, but it's where you having control, having on-demand publishing. That was one of the things I was waiting for because, oh, if you just publish a poem, people, I see people go to clubs or where they're reciting poetry and it's from the cell phone. So I have a vision for poetry and create a poetry company. And that's why the book is under Frederique Media Production, but itself has a poetry book business called Poetic Imagery in Motion, where I, create the visual aspect of it so you could see the poetry and then put the imagery as well as the emotional connection to sound and music as well. And so that's the vision behind Poetic Imagery in Motion.
Well, first and foremost, thank you for really, you took it, talk about taking it visionary. You took it to a level that most of us haven't thought about poetry in terms of, from a business side, from a control side, from a creative side, the technology side. Tell me something, if we going into the art of poetry, why is poetry, in my mind, I see it as a necessity now, but give me your perspective on what does it do for the physical man? I saw the business side, which is extraordinary, and we'll come back to that. But tell me, what does it do for the physical man? What does it do for the physical woman? Why is poetry, or why should poetry be taken more seriously?
Well, for me, I guess personally, I'm in touch with, you could say, my feminine side, if that's what you want to call it.
Oh,
But
wait a minute. Whoa, 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 whoa. A Haitian man talking about a feminine side?
because I've never been afraid to express my emotion. And one of the things I realized early on when I was young is that I was very creative in expressing myself and actually chasing love, looking for love at a young age. And I found that to writing, and it just was fulfilling. And I realized that was a great gift that I had. One of the things we talked about in the past about your purpose, you know, it takes time. And, sometimes it's not about being so macho, it's being able to understand yourself and who you are fully to actually be able to realize that, hey, I could draw or I could do this and that. And for me, it was I could write, but most importantly, I could write love poems. And that was actually my favorite thing to talk about because I spent, years as a young man looking and searching for love. And so I spent a lot of years talking to a lot of females. And so from a man's perspective, I could understand women and I actually wrote poetry for women, talking about love, talking about issues of the heart. And when you look at the book cover, Pages from My Heart, it is actually from a man's perspective, a Haitian man of all things, talking about love from his heart, from the views of talking to women over the years. And so I have a great connection to understand the needs of women, the desires of women, and I express it to poetry.
Wow. And with that, how, we talk about endorphins and how endorphins reawaken the body. So when you talk about love, when you talk about poetry, how does that raise the endorphins or make a person feel loved, feel connected, whatever that poem is trying to express? How does that happen?
Well, I really believe that I have a uniqueness in writing poetry to actually help you feel that. So I'm a very visual person, and so I actually visually see the poem in my head. And when I write, I want you to see it physically, as it happens, as the poem is saying. So I think, when we talk about our Caucasian counterparts, for me, it's never been that direct connection, because when I go to poetry slams over the years and I see how we as Black cultures write, we have that strong connection, especially spoken word poetry, that we could feel it. And so the touch of the heart is always something that's passionate. And I just want you leaving feeling something about that poem. So I think any woman who reads my poems will have that strong connection and admire right away. Especially who's like, wow, this is coming from a man. So they always shocked and always ask, did you write that? So yeah, I did write
Yes, yes.
that.
We do sit there. I am still amazed when I think about it, when I'm going, okay, because men are supposed to be, well, we say they're supposed to be macho. They don't cry. They essentially don't feel, yet we all want to feel loved. So sometimes that can be really confusing for folks like, eh?
Exactly. And so it is amazing, to be able to write. But not everybody, not to say, you could look at me and say, oh, definitely he's a strong man. It's not. So that misperception of, okay, every man has to be that macho and can, get to the sensitive side. It's something that's natural for me, and that's one of the things that helps me write. And just I get into that phase, and think about, from a woman's perspective when I write, and just understand how they would feel and how the words, and a lot of the words are very sensual, not very, sexual and stuff, but sensual, just to make you think, like say, bring that visual aspect of poetry to your heart, to give you that connection as a woman. Um, so
I love that. You said something. You said spoken poetry. Tell us a little bit about a couple of different types of poetry and what's your favorite poetry?
Well, I told you already, my favorite is actually love poems. And I actually focus on three genres: love poems, spiritual poems, and spoken word poems. So, the spiritual side, I've always been a spiritual man as well. And you could say that those go hand in hand. And so I write some poems that really connect you from a godly perspective of looking at the world. And also, of me, being a Renaissance man, and Shakespearean, I used to hate Shakespeare, by the way. And so it's kind of ironic because I actually wrote a poem dedicated to him. So spoken word poems, I really look at the social economic issues that face us, sometimes, and just the reality of the world. And so some of the spoken word poems, when you look at them, that's from the perspective in which I write them.
Okay. Now, hip hop versus spoken word. Is there a connection with that, or they're just two different? I know that they're two different things, but somehow they sound as if there's almost a connection with them.
There is, and I have worked with some artists when I was in college, and actually, a gentleman, and he could say he's very close to that hip hop connection with poetry. And for me, I'm not to that level of where I write, because I don't go that hardcore like that. So it's again because everything is a soft and essential and caring, and that whole love and the passion and the spiritual side all come together, and even to the spoken words that I write. But there is a definite connection to them. And even myself, years ago, there was a poem I always say, Babyface, when it was big time in singing, that I wrote a poem, Love Hurts, that I said, man, I would love for him to turn that poem into a whole song, because I could see the connection with that. But there is that. And then I think a lot of the music artists today, they are poets. It's just in lyric format, but it's still, the same, in a sense, just a different aspect of how they go about doing it.
Wow, okay, I appreciate that. Wanted just to take a few minutes and welcome everybody again to a very special edition dedicated to the Lady Warriors, and that is relative to poetry. We're getting ready to head into May, and we know that May tends to be very special because a lot of women, their energy, their focus seems to come around certain times of the year, and in particular, May is dedicated to women, and women have extended it from one day to the entire month. And so I thought it was appropriate as we go into two aspects of May. One, of course, the ladies and where they are feeling. And then the other is the fact that we are really, we said that we're reformatting the show. And before the show ends, I'm going to share with you how that reformat is being done. So to that end, we've decided to slide or transform into the month of May with a special place for our Lady Warriors. And fellas, that's not to say that you are forgotten, because remember, there's a gentleman on this program today who is talking to ladies, and it's a fella that's doing it. So I'm very enthusiastic and completely excited, because this was so different from what we typically do. However, we need to celebrate ourselves. Dimitri said he just got back from vacation. We need to rest and renew, and we can be right here in our own space and use poetry as a way to rest and renew. I love the way that Dimitri opened up, though. He opened up by sharing with us what poetry is from a business point of view, and how it has to be encapsulated. And quite frankly, I am reading some material on real estate. And one of the things that it speaks about is the fact that whatever we're doing, we need to control. For example, it talks about control the contract. Once you control the contract, you've got time to make some decisions. Well, here again, controlling your intellectual property, because at the end of the day, that really is all that we have. And if we do not control certain elements, then they get away from us. So that makes it important. So hashtag control my environment, hashtag control the intellectual property, hashtag control the contract. If you think about it, we had an artist who is no longer with us, but one of the things that Prince was very clear about was he controlled the environment, and he was willing to give up the dollars for the control, because ultimately it comes full circle. So there's some hashtags out there. You can hashtag Prince if you want to. Always hashtag I am a first generation wealth baby. If that is what you are, then hashtag and let's talk about it. It is my pleasure to have none other than DimitryFrederique here to talk to us about poetry. And he is going to actually speak. He's going to actually read some poetry to us, because ladies, this one is for you. You know, from a global point of view, and let's make it from a national point of view, 51% of all head of households are females. That's a lot of stress that comes upon us. I shared with you that I come from a female head of household, 3 children and 3 jobs, 1 job for each child. So when you stop and you think about that, there's a lot of imbalance in our society. And sometimes we need to be able to go in the space and just bring it down a notch. You can be in your home and you can set up a space, poetry, the bathtub, the glass of whatever it is that you want to drink, the warmth of the water, and to just bring it down so that you can relax yourself out. Because remember this too, from a health perspective, sad to say, women are almost at a near higher rate for death due to heart attacks. And with respect to all of us, 35%, there's a 35% increase in heart attacks on Mondays. We got to do something to take this down some notches for our health. Then we deal with our wealth. With that being said, let me bring Dimitri back to share with you a little bit more, now to share with you a lot more about poetry, to read something. And ladies, this is for us. You're up, sir.
All right, go ahead. So I'm going to read one of the poems from the book. It's called "When We First Made Love," and this is from the love section, of course, of my
Okay, you're
poetry.
going to hold the book up so that we can see the cover.
Sure.
Okay, up a little higher. Wonderful.
There you
And
go.
where can we get this book?
And this book is available on Amazon.com.
Nice.
It's available to my website, Frederick Media Production, or fmp.frederickcapital.com, where all my books are available for order directly. And I definitely get an autographed copy when you order it from my site as well. So one of the things, Brett, you don't even know, I've been working since last year on putting the audio version. So this is actually the second phase, or I think it's the second phase of where the audio side. So talking about truly connecting with the hearts of putting sound now to the poem. So that's something that I had envisioned to do, and I actually met an artist. He works right here in the community. So a black gentleman, someone I actually knew his brother for years, and we connected. And so I worked on that project last summer, towards the end of the year. So I was hoping this Valentine's year it was going to be ready, but it wasn't. So hopefully by next year it'll be ready. But I'm going to listen to the sounds, connection, the poem. So it's truly that poetic imagery in motion. That what we're talking about, the whole connection, where taking that to the next level to do that.
The mind's eye, absolutely. Well, I'm going to sit back and listen.
Sure. When we first made love, I knew you were a blessing from the heavens above. The way you touched me, girl, was a feeling of ecstasy. As I opened up my heart to you, you cured all my wounds, with your tender kiss. As I lay down and closed my eyes, I can still feel your body next to mine. As I dream of when we first made love, never again shall a woman make me feel the same way as you, because our first will always be unique. Your beloved lips are tender and sweet as we embrace. Your skin so soft and gentle, that of a newborn baby, fresh into a nurtured world. My arms caress your shoulder up and down with a gentle stroke as you relax your head next to mine and whisper, I love you. The times we've gazed at each other's eyes has never been the same as you. As I stare deep within your eyes and see the glimmer of your bright blue eyes, you smile at me for a moment, and I stop to give thanks to the Lord, for you have been the God sent from the heavens above. The lonely days I've waited to make love to you while refusing the pleasures from the fruits of temptation was a blessing in disguise as I hold back the countless years of tears that I have shed for you. Tonight, your disguise has been yet worth the wait of endless heartaches and broken promises, false hopes and expectations. So why not share these tears once again for you, my love? For they are tears of joy, and that not of sorrow. When we first made love.
Ladies, if you did not feel something as that was being said, I don't know what else to tell you.
Yeah.
It's
It's
like,
all
bring it down a notch or so. Bring it down a few notches. My word. What made you, out of all the poems that you've written, what made you select that particular poem to share with us?
Well, just to give you an example, a glimpse to the passion behind, I believe myself to be a unique artist when it comes to, especially, being a brother and writing about love, that I really, when you're talking about connecting the passion of love and understanding the woman's desire, and this is from me, and actually, again, that sensitive side of me, just saying, even a brother looking for love too, so that was me, young adolescent, searching for that special person. Like I always said, I've always known I was looking for a wife, so that poem was just basically a gentleman waiting for that special woman to come into his life and to be making love to him to her for the first time. And so that's where that passion come in and just using all the emotional connection towards that moment. And that's what that poem was about when we first made love.
Uh, I got to tell you, I was, you see the smile on my face as I'm going, wow, what it takes to write, to have the emotion, to write it. You know what I looked at and said was incredibly powerful is to be courageous, because that the emotion, to be willing, to be open, to be willing, to have a level of vulnerability, and what it makes me think of is growing old together, where you know that person so well. Tell me something in that poetry and in the writing. When we speak about love, it often it's vulnerability, and I think about Khalil Gibran's The Prophet when he talks about love, and sometimes it can be like a spear. Speak to us about that.
Well, love, has tear down empires, in history. And so, I say women are the most powerful thing out there, and those who understand the power of emotional using, femininity, the sexual persuasion, you could say, and adding love to it. And a lot of men have taken down women because of making them feel madly in love, and then crush them and destroy them. So, the Greek strategies of the stories, it's all been about passion. And so love is a powerful thing. And today, I think, the younger generation don't understand the power behind love. And we take love for granted and use it in a different sense of what love should have meant to what it means more of just for now, temporary love. You know, so I'm talking about that true passionate love, the old school love that we so accustomed to growing up. And that's the kind of love I'm talking about and writing about.
Ladies, did you hear that kind of love? Passion, vulnerability, courage. I mean, that, ladies, is amazing. That somebody could want to feel that kind of intensity. Does it make you feel good all over? Because it ought to, because I'm telling you, it's making me feel good all over. That is, that's extraordinary. Dimitri, how many men, I don't know if I'm asking the right question, but
Hmm.
how do men get to that place where they can write the poetry, where they can feel it, where they're willing to be vulnerable? And you said something else too. You said women are powerful. And I think there are a lot of women out there that do not realize that they are. And instead of being impassioned with that and wanting to make the connection, it's not happening that way.
Well, I think, sometimes life forces us to kind of kill that passion in us, or been having been hurt so many years, so many bad relationships. I think it's, and this is from talking to a lot of women, is understanding and being able to grow. Just like in business, we have to also be growing and nurturing the inner self. It's one thing to hold your heart protective from all the hurts, but there's that joy. And some of the things I write about is those connections that, because I've been hurt, as well. And so I was able to take that from a man's perspective and put it into paper and share my passion, my emotional desire for love and relationship. And so, it's one way to actually express it, take it, that anger, that hurt, and put it, transfer it to something else, versus where every relationship next come along is still bottled up with that hurt, and therefore never giving that person a chance to love, and for you to be loved. And so that's where the difference is, in understanding that, that's part of the process. And once you find that one person in the end, that you say, here's my true mate, here's my partner in crime, we're going to make this happen, take on the world, you know then it's worth it at the end.
Mm. Got a question for you. What do you think about journaling in terms of writing out, for example, there might be anger, there might be disappointment, things of that nature. How does journaling fit in to poetry and fit into that human connection?
Sure. I think it's definitely fitting because, you could say my sense of how I write, and because poetry is not my full-time thing I write, because I have many gifts and talents. So there's sections, I've been writing since I was in high school. And so I took that first set of poems that I wrote, and I don't write tons of time all the time, you know, and so because it takes so much out of you too. So that's why I'm very focused, where, because for me, I love jazz, I love but I don't listen to them all the time, because
Mm.
when I start listening to it, it gets me to that writing mode. Or if I'm going to something, then I could write, because I could just start writing like crazy. So, because there's that anger you could write about, which is what you asked me, where I've seen people, I've gone to some poetry places, the Blue Way, for example, in the past, and I hear the poetry. It's like, man, there's a lot of anger in there. I was like, man, you could say that's poetry. Yes, it is poetry at the same, but if you refine, like for me, and one of the things for me is that I don't cuss, in my poems. I don't, like I said, it's sensual, it's passionate, so it's something that's pleasing to people, and also, for me. I cater to a certain class of people. That's why for me, even myself, I don't read poetry anywhere. I have to feel the environment. It has to be classy for me. So that's why when I look at the way my style is, that it's a unique style, and that's why for me I have a business vision of the kind of atmosphere I want to create to read poetry and bring different artists to it. Because there's some people like, like you said, we're in a happy moment right now. Do you want to someone anger? Like, you hear that passion and anger, this and that, like, and then they still have that anger in them. They haven't released it, writing the poetry and finish it. They still have it in them, and every time they bring that anger back to them. So, you know, again, different artists with different style of audience that you're looking for. But for me, my style is different, where I know where to control it. Like right now, I'm writing books, so I don't cross the two together. Where okay, I'm writing books right now, then all of a sudden I'm angry. I'm writing a poem, or I'm getting into that love feelings now, because I focus each one and I dedicate the time to each one.
Absolutely. You know, one of the things that I want to share with the audience, and from a personal point of view, is I found that journaling is such a critical part of the living, because sometimes it's about, you've got to write the anger out. You write the anger out about the business deal that didn't work. You write the anger out about, and it may not always be anger. It can be anger, it can be disappointment, it can be joy. When it's written out, and sometimes you look back at it and you look at the state of being, there's a lot that can be taught. In fact, I was reading something called the Daily Text yesterday, and
Froze up.
because there's a learning, our training, and no matter how old we are, there's still something that can be learned. There's something that can be trained, and sometimes we need to feel it. And then the statement of when the teacher comes along, when the student is ready, the teacher comes
Yeah.
along. Maybe we need to stretch that learning just a little bit so that we gather some more, and then the teacher comes along to finish the job. But we've got to be able to experience it, and then it happens. So I tend to like journaling a great deal. What's your thought regarding journaling as it fits into the poetry?
Well, it refines what you do, because, like we say, there's that anger part, but then you need to reflect. Because if you're going to make it art, you want to cater to the right people. So, maybe the artists, like, like when you hear artists trying to transfer to a different medium of music, right? And, it's like, oh, well, they say, well, the people in charge say, well, I don't know if these people are ready for this kind of music, right? So it's the same way, you need to reflect back on what you write, because it is therapy for you when you look back at it.
Through that, yes.
And so even some of my own writing as well, it's been relationship therapy for me, spiritual therapy for me. And I talk about death, and I actually, what's funny is I write several poems in my first book about death, to help you console your heart and the pain you've gone through from losing somebody. So it's a good thing, journaling, and it helps you reflect, putting you at peace, the peace that you're looking for. Because I just the war, what's that? There's a new movie, um, The War Room, where the she's an older lady, more like a grandmother, but she would write on the wall, and that was that piece for the struggle she was going through in her marriage, and that was powerful, and she taught that, and so on, and it's the same way, what poetry can bring to you, and that comfort that you're looking for.
For sure, for sure. And ladies, the reason, if you will, again, that I thought about this for us, and I was so glad that Dimitri had one, not only had time, but two, could embrace what I was looking at, is that we're about to go into, we're lady warriors. Warriors, what does that mean? How strong and powerful is that word? And there's always a soft spot that we need to be able to go to, so that when that battle for what we're looking for, and that battle is our financial battle, that battle is for our family, it is so that we are leaving something for the next generation. When we're going to go into that battle, we got to go in with a fortress. We've got to go in with that breastplate. But there's always a soft spot. No matter how many places we cover, there's still a soft spot that needs to be, as Dimitri said, needs to be nurtured so that it can be a consoling place. And today is about the consoling place. And I got to tell you something. If you had talked to me about a year ago, I don't think that fits now, but that's the maturity, the growth that we get to see that, yes, in fact, it does fit to, and you can include that in, and you can see where poetry transcends in business and where it helps to bring it all together. So that is the premise, the basis for which we are here today. And I'm just smiling because I'm so enthusiastic. You write about love, Dimitri, and I'm going to come back to that. Uh, do we have anything, love for our work or love for our passion for what it is that we want to do? Can you speak to that in the format or the platform of poetry?
Sure, and I actually wanted to bring that back because from the aspect of business as well, because for 17 years, I've written poetry, and as a young man, I had a vision, and later on, as technology was growing and changing, I had a vision of what I wanted to do with my poem, but didn't have the proper technology in place yet for it, and so it's part of that business perspective that okay, you have to control the content, but also the intellectual property, but also the income, how you create profit. Because one of the things I saw a lot of people, I don't. They may be poets, but they're not business poets or business-minded poets in mind because they're just putting the thing online free. I always have the intellectual property in mind in place. And also understanding it's one of the things that we talked about in the past about technology today, online businesses, and how different ways, different avenues that are there available right now that could take your idea and take it online or whatever way you want to distribute it so that you could have control over it. And so for me, one of the things for me, I looked at the technology, intellectual property. I have a great relationship with Amazon, and Amazon allowed that, when Barnes and Noble and them will slowly convert into online ebooks and so on and so on. Being able to be on-demand publishing, where and again, you have to understand a lot of things about business because you could say, oh, I just wrote a book, I just have a bestseller, but it's just like the rappers in the music industry, they have the fancy cars and that. Well, you don't own that car, you have a lot of debt. And so on-demand publishing allowed that for me. Being having an online business cut down the cost as a business person so that you can have a chance to whether or not you just want to create something and say, hey, I accomplished something. I'm a legacy driven person as well. So one of the things I also did, it wasn't about me, it's about the company, the legacy leaving down the line. So it's a poetic imagery motion. It's under the umbrella of Frederick Media Production, which is under umbrella of Frederick Capital. So that's how I structured the company. So people may say, okay, well, why is this artist, and also I dress up. I don't come with jeans looking like a, you know, not to disrespect people who do those things, but, again, it's a different medium and it's a different class of poetry that I am. So I carry myself as a business person. So you don't see that this is just a poet, someone just reading poetry. No, I take the time to put the investment in it and make it. So you see the company logos, everything looks professional,
Mm.
and so that's how you carry yourself for success in business.
True that, true that. Got a question for you. Where, if we wanted to hear poetry, there is us reading the poetry, there's also us hearing the poetry so that we can be in the space, in that environment of relax or let it infiltrate the mind, let it take us to a different level. Where do we get an opportunity to do that here in Boston, here in Massachusetts in particular?
Well, actually, that's one of the biggest things, and that's one of the things I would love to solve because, like I said, I have a big vision to create poetry where you could come and experience an environment of relaxation, maybe a hard day at work, and listen to poetry. And for me, it's bringing actually love back in relationships. One of the vision when I did the book signing, I actually wanted to create an atmosphere where and actually promote that concept of a restaurant type atmosphere where you could dance, relax, have those romantic conversations, have those first dates memories. And you could say, here, years later, when you have kids, say, hey, this is where I took your mother, on the first date, this and that. But guess what? That's a vision, but Massachusetts mentality doesn't have that yet. You go to New York, that's where you actually find that. I have a good friend of mine. She tells me there's so many places out in New York that has that and embraces that because not only as an entrepreneur that you're gonna find a medium, create a platform, but you also need a place where people are going to support it, and that's one of the things I've looked at. I have friends. There's a lot of desire. There's a lot of interest in it, but would it be supported on a regular basis? And also, would a lot of us listen to our inner self and start writing those poetries that is so deep into our hearts, in our minds that we haven't put into paper yet? And so, finding those collective poets, in college, it was a great atmosphere. You see a lot of those in college atmospheres, but after graduation, Massachusetts doesn't have the platform
Yeah.
to support it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about Cambridge? Because we always think of Cambridge as a think tank. So in that think tank environment, is Cambridge a place where we would likely see poets or poetry rooms or something of that nature?
Yes, Cambridge has a place. Actually, when I moved back to Boston years later, I think the Lizard Lounge up in Cambridge has a place, and then there was the Blue Whale at the time, and I even recently talked to the guys because they had closed that down to restart at a different atmosphere. But again, my style, how I want to create that atmosphere, and that's part of the problem, I think, when you look at the industry, because it's really scattered. It just people just coming in. I want it to be real artists who are published, because one of the things we don't think about as poetry is it a business where I have a book that people could buy or audio CD that people could buy. So yes, they may have little places here, and there's also college atmospheres with the BU, BC around that area to do those things. But is it consistent? Is it that classic atmosphere? Because for me, not to disrespect, the Liz line, it's a bar, it's an underground area. And for me, when I first there, it wasn't the atmosphere. If you ain't gonna listen to love poems, you're not gonna listen. You're not gonna come where there's smoking, there's drinking. You know, the you know,
Yeah.
different kind of people that, because there's certain atmosphere. If you serious about passion, love, that's not the place you're gonna come and find it or listen to it. So that's one of the things. Like I said, I'm very careful where I read,
Yeah.
because it's a business for me. It's not a hobby. So I'm
Mm.
looking for the class and the proper
Okay.
atmosphere.
Well, tell us, sir, do you have another selection possibly?
Sure. So I'm
Ooh,
gonna look at reading it from a spiritual standpoint.
okay.
One of my books actually. Um, you know, I don't get too many requests, but some people that have been close to me have asked me, and this is actually one of the first poems a friend of mine in college years ago had asked me to write a poem for her. And I don't take requests like that. It's usually knowing that person, having a deep connection with that person, where I look at it and look at you and start writing, and this is what came to my heart. It's called "Thank You, Lord."
Okay.
Thank you, Lord, for the years you have stood beside me. Truly speaks well of your name, Father. You have been with me from the start to the end. From my struggles to my happiness, you have been there. You never once let me down to the test of hardship, yet I have let you down many times. I could always count on you to get me through my troubles when I lost hope. The countless times you have bailed me out when I call out to you, you never once asked me much of me in return. Selfish I have been throughout these years, taking for granted the love you have shown to all your children. All I could say is, thank you, Lord. For all the good and the bad we have done, you still found space in your heart to love each one of us. There have been times when we did not deserve to call you our Father. For the things we have done with your name, and at times in your name, we have been a selfish race of humans. For the hatred we have spread with your name, for the bombs we have dropped, the wars we have lived through, the blood we have shed, for the hands that have praised you. The same ones which has made the sign of the cross, and even with the lips that once praised your name with honor, but now has lost the faith. For the times we have been heartless and neglected our fellow brothers and sisters, I thank you from the bottom of my heart. Most of all, I thank you for taking my hands as your child, guiding me through each step of life's journey. I want to thank you, Lord, for allowing me to love, for giving me many second chances when I did not deserve it. For these things, I love you. That was thank you, Lord.
Uh, I just had to again once bring it down. As I listened to that, what became so evident, and I hope that it is evident for everybody that's watching, is how where it places you, how you feel. Again, how it causes us to decompress. I found my eyes going down. I found my it's just almost like a whitewash in the brain as I started down that path of where I could see you were taking us. And it made me just say all the more how powerful, how incredibly powerful poetry is. and how it causes us to decompress and to renew so that we can go out and be the wealth warriors that we want and choose to be. That was pretty heavy duty, sir.
Thank you very much.
You are so welcome. I just want to take a break for just a moment and share with us. We're coming up, we're on the quarter of the hour. We are having rather DimitryFrederique here, who has an incredible book of poetry. And again, what I'm hoping that you walk away from today going, man, I never put the connection between poetry, my state of being, and the trajectory of where I want to go to. And that is what we wanted to have happen today. Not only, we wanted to have it happen for everyone, we wanted to give a special attention as we go into the month of May to the ladies in the house, the lady warriors that are out there that are marshaling to make it happen. I want to share with you for just a few more moments before we close out and have Dimitri share his final thoughts with us. And that is this: we are reformatting the show. And what is going to happen is we're going to have a business corner. We're going to have a corner whereby we're going to ask each of you, those of us that are in business now, to share your business with us, and not just share it in the feed, but we're going to invite you onto the show for 15 minutes, for a quarter of the hour, to share with us your business. Both Pamela and I are going to interview you about what business it is that you have. What's this going to do? This is going to do a couple of things. One, it's going to give you some press on the air. Two, it's going to allow you to have something that you can cut and splice and put into your YouTube feed. Three, it's going to give you an opportunity to let all of the community know exactly what it is that you do, so that they can look inward when it comes to purchasing services. And that's powerful, because what does that do? That causes that dollar to float within our network for a significant period of time. We're looking for that to float several times within our Wealth Warrior community, so that we can actually attach a value to the show. So for example, like a BNI, or one of the entities in which they actually track the money, and they say, okay, as a result of your involvement, you actually were able to bring into your household X amount of dollars. You were actually able to help your home to grow. So we're going to put it out on the feed that we are looking for. We want to stack everybody so that we have people coming on to the program 15 minutes. And I'll tell you what, 15 minutes is a lot of good time to be able to share your experience with our audience. So that's one of the major ones that's going to happen starting in May. Now the program is going to focus in on 3 areas. It's going to focus in on entrepreneurship, because that's a significant part of what creates wealth. We're going to focus in on real estate from the point of being an investor, because no matter what's going on in the marketplace, no matter what the business cycle is, no matter what the real estate cycle is, no matter what the financial cycle is, there's always something that can be done with real estate. And we're going to focus in on paper, money, stock, and how that works. So those 3 houses of economic empowerment are going to get started. We are moving into the next 12 months of our 5-year journey, of our 60-month journey. We've got 48 months to go. And that means we are going to propel and increase the number of people, the number of warriors that are coming together. Each week now, there are new warriors. We're going to create phenomenal value, because it's time. So know that we're moving into the space of entrepreneurship. That's where we're going to spend a couple of months talking about what kind of businesses, what works well for you. So I'm going to encourage everybody to go up onto the Small Business Administration website and look at the list, the top 10 businesses that you can get into that are at a low cost. I want to also share and thank one of our business partners, one of our wealth warriors, who is also a business partner of mine, for allowing me to create the studio within her home studio. So I want to give a shout out to Alina Lopez Thomas and say thank you so much for allowing us to studio with you. So that was very, very important. For those of you that got on the broadcast, the very first folks on the broadcast, I want to go, my hat to you as well. And Pamela Stone will be back with us next week. She sends her regards as the co-host for the program, and we will have a business owner on come next week. So I want to again share my thanks. I want to wrap up and round out with DimitryFrederique sharing letting us see the cover of the book again, showing us where we can get the book, and whatever he wants to do to close out being part of this segment. We appreciate that. Dimitri, the floor is yours.
Well, truly, I thank you for inviting me, and definitely love our fellowship as always when we talk. One of the things to go even back to what you just said, we live in the 21st century where jobs is getting scarce and scarce, and your education doesn't always value what your degree is in to get a solid job or even last 30, 40 years. So entrepreneurship is where it's at. That's why even myself, I wrote a book on entrepreneurship called Why Entrepreneurship? What is it all about? To understand that. But also even real estate, the stock market. I actually have investments in each one. And part of the thing of the 21st century, you have to be a 21st century entrepreneur. We say the word entrepreneur. We haven't even said the word business so much. It's one thing about business, but entrepreneur, the difference is understanding that you have to have multiple income streams. The world today requires you, the 21st century requires you to have multiple income streams to survive. The day of you relying on the stock market where the economy is not stable, or a job is not stable, you have to find an alternative way. There's a lot of ways, and then today we talked about poetry. You could actually take your passion, whether it's something poetic or something just traditional business, and put it online to create a business for yourself. So, there is so many opportunities. Years ago, for myself, I even have an online show and say, hey, Apple created the online podcasting. I said, you know what? There's no more excuse to meet you for why you cannot do your own show. Even Brent having Hangout, Facebook, you have on Google Hangouts as well. So there's all these platforms to allow you to express your creativity, not for nonsense, but for create opportunities, create income for yourself. You talk about so many single parents out there today. The stats are ridiculous, but that's the reality of what you're going to face in the 21st century, because we're not developing men to be leaders in our household anymore. So a lot of women have to take on the barriers of both mother and father. So today it needs you to be a creative person, to have the open-mindedness to have multiple streams of income and learn how to create those multiple streams of income. You cannot define yourself 24 hours in a day to do multiple things, but you could use the internet to allow you to create income streams while you are sleeping. And that's the power of being an entrepreneur. And so I thank you for inspiring women to become entrepreneurs, to learn and understand the power it takes, because it's not that difficult. It just takes time, creativity, and pursuing your passion, which is what God gave us all, the abilities to pursue our purpose. Thank you for having me.
You are very welcome. What a wrap up. I couldn't have said it better. I can only embrace it and appreciate it. This, ladies and gentlemen, has been quite a show, and I hope that you will look back at it a couple of times and draw some nuggets out of what it is we're wanting for you. And the beauty is, notice this, we're doing it together, not one, not two, we're doing it together. Why? Because when one person's boat rises, we all rise. And that is power in and of itself. It has been my pleasure to be with you this morning. We will be back next week. And next week we will have, actually we did it pretty much today, but we will have a segment of the marketplace that is dedicated to the entrepreneur of the week. Again, my pleasure. Today I want you to go out, not only be amazing, extraordinary. See you next week. Bye now.